Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jim Nowakowski. Hopefully you can hear me. On behalf of Interline Group, welcoming you, all of you, to, as we call it, check out our website, which is really why people decide to hire you or not. I'm going to say this, I think I counted 40 times, maybe 41. Your website is the most important marketing tactic you have. There's nothing more important. As I said to a publisher the other day, why would I want my eyeballs of anybody, any prospect for my clients anywhere except on their own website? That is my client's website. So I want you to keep that in mind as we go through the presentation today. There's room for questions in the question box, in the chat room, whatever you'd like to do. This is an AIA-approved course. We have architects in the audience. We have designers in the audience. This course has been approved and, condoned by the AIA. It's also been approved and condoned by the IDCEC for interior designers like ASID, IIDA people. So we're very happy that they like our course and that they gave us the credit for that. And finally, last but not least, is the NKBA. We know we have some kitchen cabinet people in the audience today, as well as the architects, designers, professional. We even have, ladies and gentlemen, full disclosure, manufacturers, which is good. We love anybody who wants to know how to improve their website, why the website is the key marketing tactic, should be on this course. This is copyright by our organization. However, when we're done, if you'd like, what we could do is you just send me an email or send Sue Alt, who controls this, license for GoToWebinars. Send her an email and we'll make sure you get a PDF of these slides if you'd like them. So you don't have to be doing screenshot. Not that you're doing screenshot. What we wanted to do today is really look at how to navigate your business message on the internet. On the internet, not in person, but on the internet, because as I said before, your website is your most important marketing tactics, as you'll see in a moment. So there's a lot of channels, social media. Some people swear, well, Jim, I just rather use Facebook or Instagram. Well, good luck. Not everybody you're after is using Instagram, and not everybody you're after is using Facebook. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't use them. In fact, you'll see a section later on where we talk about social media and the importance of connecting it to your website. So what I want to do in this course is challenge you to think differently about the way you present your value proposition. And you're going to say, what's my value? I know what I am. I'm a great architect, or I'm a great designer. I don't think there's anybody in the audience who is not great. And that's the problem. How does your prospect, how does your customer, how does anyone differentiate if you're all great? So that's one of the things we'll be exploring very carefully today, is the difference in terms of differentiation. So, the learning objectives you saw when you registered, I'm not going to read them all, but what we want to do is who are your customers, why it's important to look at your value proposition and differentiation. These are the learning objectives that we outlined for the course. So let me kick this off with a startling statistics, as if you didn't know this. Maybe some of you did. Maybe I should say, raise your hand if you know this. 70% or more now, because of COVID, of the people looking for companies like yours go to Google first. Ladies and gentlemen, it's undeniable that Google owns this territory. You have Bing, you have other search engines, but Google is the market leader. They've been the market leader for a long time. If you're familiar with the words ChatGPT, which is AI, artificial intelligence, that's going to make this statistic even worse, because people are going to be going more and more to these search engines for information. Therefore, your website has to be in the answers when they go to the search engines, and it has to be on page 1. If you're not on page 1, and here's an alert, Google doesn't put pages anymore, they're scrolling pages. So I used to like to say, I like to be on page 1. With some of my content. You can't say that anymore, because the whole thing is page 1. You keep scrolling down and getting more and more content. But what we want to do is understand why this is important. So if you're, for example, if you're selling outdoor security lights, blah, 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 you got a lot of features, functions, and benefit. But what you're really selling, if you sell security lights, is security. Now, security, like architecture, like design, those are intangible words. Intangible words are the most difficult words to convey. You've heard this saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? Well, a picture is in fact worth 1,000 words, and Google reads the words. They don't see the images. It's like in The Predator where Arnold Schwarzenegger puts the mud on himself and the alien can't see him. Google can't see pictures. They can only read words. So one of the key things to do is if you post pictures, which all of you do, is to actually make captions behind them or under them or around them. We're visual people. Video is taking off through the roof. Everybody's doing videos. I looked at many of you, we have almost over 50 people in here, and some of you are coming in through the Gmail accounts that you have and your other unidentifiable email addresses. But those of you who came in through your domain names, I looked at your website. I'm going to show a few later on, and I'm going to make you an offer you may not want to refuse. But anyway, if you look at that, people are visual, and the amount of video going on these days is just enormous. Look at the growth of YouTube. You can find anything you want on YouTube. Google reads everything. They can't read that picture, but they're going to read what's behind that picture. They're going to read all the words on this page. They're going to read all the words on this page. They're going to read all the words on this page, not the pictures, unless those pictures have an identifying meta tag behind them, a caption with them, or whatever. 70%, ladies and gentlemen, of link searches use Google, and they're organic. You know, when you search anything, and we're going to give you some examples of that, the first thing Google does is show you the paid sponsorship, the ads. You shouldn't want to pay Google for anything, do you? You really don't. You want to own that content. Okay? 70 to 80% of users ignore paid ads. If you have an ad blocker, the best ad blocker I know is Ghostry, G-H-O-S-T-R-Y. Put it on your browser, and you'll never see another ad. You can turn them on, turn them off, adjust them, whatever you'd like to do. Sometimes I like to see what people are advertising. So if you're not on page one, you're just not anywhere. So imagine what COVID did to these types of statistics where we all button down and hampered down in our homes. It's amazing what it did. So I want to get real for a minute. Imagine you're a customer. I was in the gym this morning before this presentation. I usually buy a double espresso, and the lady at the counter at the gym was talking to a guy who was buying a very, very nice Starbucks drink mixed with whipped cream and whatever, but she was talking to him. Now, I only had 5 minutes before I had to leave, so I stood there patiently, then I walked away, came back, walked away, came back. And when I walked away for the third time, she said, "Would you like your Doppio, Jim?" I said, "No, that's okay, I gotta go." And I worked on my phone a little bit, and then I left. I don't think I'll ever buy another cup of coffee. I'm not going to buy another cup of coffee because she clearly saw I was waiting while she was talking. And I don't want to interrupt the conversation, but it takes nothing. It reminds me of the time, when we had 9/11, they closed all the airports for a while, and then people got back on, and there were these enormous lines. I saw a coffee vendor bemoaning his fate because everybody didn't want to leave the line and buy coffee from him. So he was just holding his head in his hands. He was depressed. And I said to myself, this is interesting. Why doesn't he bring the coffee to the line? Because people would buy the coffee, but he just didn't think like that. So I want you to think you're the customer. When you hit your website, you got to ask yourself objectively, what are people seeing? What are they seeing? And how often do you send emails every day? Do you send them once a year? These are very important questions to understand when you're talking about a website, because your website is the key to the puzzle. Everybody has to come to your website first. That's how they judge you. Ladies and gentlemen, they're judging you now, and you don't know that they're judging you unless you can see them through what they call a reverse IP lookup code. I'm telling you right now, this is very important. So your website is the key to the puzzle. That's what this is about, and that's why people hire you. And by the way, people spend a lot of time on the internet. As you know, I'm sure you do too. This is one statistic from eMarketer, right? If you look at the growth of people using digital media, spending the time, there's how much data, can you eat? That's a blog I wrote 5 years ago when it was proliferating, way before COVID. There's more and more data being produced. And one of the other things that you have to walk away with today is to realize that content is what you're selling. Wait a minute. I'm a designer. I'm not selling content. I'm selling high design. Wait a minute. I'm an architect. Wait a minute. I'm a manufacturer. Stop waiting a minute. You're in a content war. Content is what your currency is. Content is how you bring yourself to page 1 in a Google search. We're going to talk about that. This is some of the data consumption going on the internet. Some people think they build a website and that's it. The business will roll in. Some people think, well, all I got to do is this and the business will roll in. This is the environment you're up against. Everybody wants to be seen. Everybody's talking. Like I said, content is proliferating. So how do you expect to be found in all this content? Well, the key is to understand how Google searches are comprised, what they look for. And remember this, one of the rules, they read everything. Secondly, you have to know what you're selling. You're not selling just architecture. We're going to talk about that, or design. You're selling everything. So if you Google plumbing showrooms in Chicago, you get, 484,000 results. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't have the time to go over every one of these and look for a plumbing showroom in Chicago when I'm looking at it, for one as a consumer. I really don't. Nor do you. If you keep going through here, you're going to see some of them beyond the ads. If you see all those ads, they don't call them ads now. They call them sponsored content, because Google changes all the time. Google changes the rules all the time because they realize people don't read ads. Did you know that? You don't read ads, do you? When I watch television, it's all in the DVR because I don't really want to watch commercials. Sometimes I will, just because I'm an advertising guy and I want to see how ads are being made today and what the topic is. And if you watch ads, you can see how goofy ads are nowadays, right? I don't want to get into taste right now, but if you look at these non-advertising, you have Shop Studio 41, Kohler Signature, House. You're all familiar with House. Google is giving this to people, your prospects, your customers, who are searching for plumbing showrooms. So if you're not in this batch, if you're not Studio 41, and you're not on this list, well, they're not going to look at you and consider you. There's other ways to get showrooms in Chicago, right? Around Chicago area. You can go to Yelp. I don't use Yelp, but you can go to Yelp. It's crazy because that's another thing that really ranks people. And here you get different rankings of showrooms. Some people actually pay for this, and I wouldn't do it, but I'm sure you may do it. If you do this, in this case, you got over 190,000. Here's the secret. I want you to write this down. This is one of my giveaways. If you type site, S-I-T-E, colon, and put in the website address, you will see how many pages are on that website. Site, colon, websiteaddress.com. Now, why is that important? Well, because the more pages you have, the more likely you are to be on page 1 in a Google search. Remember, Google reads everything. If you have 4 pages as opposed to 400 pages, you are less likely to be on page 1. It's a fact. So what you really want to do is start thinking about flooding your website with relevant content. Not just any kind of content, but relevant content. So for example, here's Crawford Supply. They're one of the results that was in the Google search, Crawford Supply. If I do site crawfordsupply.com, they have 550 pages. 550 pages, of which one page brought them to page 1. You can look at the page and get ideas from their page on the types of words they're using to get into a Google search for plumbing showrooms in Chicago. That was the search we used. So you have to decide, how do you want people to find you? What do you think they should type into that search bar? This is very difficult because there is no right or wrong answer. So let's try another one. Ferguson. Everyone in the audience should know who Ferguson is. They're the biggest. They're every plumbing manufacturer's biggest customer, right? They used to be a small customer, part of the Omni Group. Then they grew to be their own buying group. They're like Walmart. They're the Walmart of plumbing, right? So they come up naturally on page 1 in this search. How many pages do they have? Well, if you put in site : FergusonShowrooms.com, you'll see that they have, now don't fall off your chairs, 353,000 pages. How do you compete with that? How do you compete with that? You could do this with any website, right? Here's House. House came up, right? Site House.com, 7.5 million. You know, House is the largest collection of images for kitchens and baths and living rooms and outdoor kitchen. House is the biggest receptacle that has all these images. In fact, designers give them the images, put them on House instead of putting them on their own website. Why would you do that? I have nothing against House. Nothing. I think House is great, right? But why would you give House your content when you want that content? You want people to come to your website. Okay. The key to SEO is not just pictures. It's content. It's information. It's words. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Write those 1,000 words about the pictures that you post on your website. Well, Jim, I don't have the time. Find someone who will. You don't have to write in 1,000 words. You can write 200 words. You can write 10 words, but write words. And linking. Link within your own website to other things. So, for example, if you Google conversation from hell, not that you would, I don't know anybody who would, this is how I learned about this about 10 years ago. I wrote this blog called Conversation from Hell, put it on my website, and in the next couple of months, I looked at this, and when I typed it into Google, Google put it on page 1. And I said, isn't that interesting? I had a major publisher come to my office that year, and he said, how much are you paying Google to do that, to put you on page 1 with this? I said, I really can't tell you, but it's enormous. Ladies and gentlemen, I wasn't paying Google a dime. This was just natural content. So from then on, what I decided to do is look for ways to get on page 1 with words, because that's what Google looks at. Nobody's going to Google conversation from hell, I assure you. But then you start looking at words around those words, like how do you have a conversation with hell or whatever. And it works not just with that, but things like this. You know, we're a marketing company. I don't do what you do. I'm not a great designer. I'm not a great, architect. I just write, right? Words are my palette. They're the paint on my palette. But because we want to be thought leaders, one of the things that we want to understand is pricing. How do you price your services? How do you price anything? If you're a manufacturer, how do you price what you're selling? We do seminars on price. So I decided one day that I want to own those words. I want to own never lower your price, because I believe that you should never lower your price. There's a lot of reasons why, and I can talk to you offline about that. So I wrote a blog, Never Lower Your Price. And if you go and you type in, should I ever lower my price? Why shouldn't I ever lower my price? Should I raise my prices? Should I lower my price? If you start typing in variations of Never Lower Your Price, my blog is now on page 1. I'm not the top of the list, like Conversation from Hell, but I'm there. I'm not paying Google, and I'm there. And that's an important thing when you're talking to clients and you want to say, hey, I've got some currency here. I know what I'm talking about. So the thing to think about are the words you want to own, the words that you want to own, which is very important. Okay. 1 second. I want to go back here. What is your value proposition? Well, how do you plan to stay? Value is when you give me a benefit that I hadn't anticipated. Value is why your customers want to do business with you. It's really the why behind that. Simon Sinek has the whole cult on why, which is good, but it's really, they're buying from you because they like you. Part of their value is they like you, but also you have to be good at what you do and deliver what you say. That's what value is. But remember, value is an intangible word, like those intangible words like what we were talking about earlier. I'm going to do a test. I've arranged with GoToWebinars to suck the air out of your room in about 4 seconds, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to ask each of you to send me some cyber currency to put the air back in your room. Would you do it? Of course not. I don't have that technology capability, right? But air has no value. We breathe it all the time. I know when you're next to a truck's, fuming black smoke, because whatever, you lose, and you got your windows open in your vehicle, you start coughing, close the windows, put the air on right away. Air has no value until you don't have it. That's what I'm talking about, that people, there's a whole study on this called Love Marks. I can send you the paper if you want, written several years ago by one of the top agency guys. If you're a brand, and you are a brand, everybody is a brand, and you also use brands. But if you have a brand and people cannot get your brand, of course they'll switch brands. So part of the value is that if they do not use you, they have to feel pain. I know that's a really weird thing to say. But if you're just another brand, if you're just another commodity, if you're just air, and you have no value, people will just go to the next one. In fact, one of the attributes that we find in research after research after research is availability is the key to the puzzle. If you're available when people need you, you win. That's the key. So, as you think about your value proposition, who are you? What makes you unique? Truly, think about this. What is your competitor doing that you don't do? What do you do that your competitor doesn't do? And by the way, who is your competitor? You think it's another design firm, another architect. It's really not. It's more than that. It's the content on the web that makes people believe that they could be you, that they could do what you do. Now, if you doubt that, start thinking about and using GPT. This is one of the AI tools that just came out about a month ago. Just start thinking about that. You already know that, for example, you can go and somebody can help you design a room, which has happened. I've heard from designers talk to me. I got these goofballs going to this website, designing a room, putting it together, and then structurally it falls apart because they're not structural engineers. This happens all the time. It's called experience. Part of who you are is your experience. Your experience is non-duplicated. How do you convey that to your customers? Why do they do business with you? Why do they like you? Why do you dislike them? And don't say you like all your customers, because I know you'd be fibbing. But these are very difficult questions. I don't expect you to answer them now, but you have to answer them because that's part of the journey that you're on. And by the way, What makes them unique? What makes you unique? What makes your customers unique? Or are all customers the same? Of course they're not. Why do they do what they do, the current customers do? What are people doing in the trends today? I'm giving a speech in 2 weeks for the KCMA, Kitchen Cabinet Manufacturers Association. They invited me to their annual meeting. I can't wait to give it. It's on 7 trends that are going on, that have always been going on. Pricing, regional sales. There's all sorts of things going on around you. How do you take that information, apply it to yourself to further differentiate yourself? Pardon me. These are all equally difficult questions. If there was an easy answer, I'd put it on the screen. But there is no easy answer because you're all different. Differentiation is the key. Well, I'm just another architect. I was having a phone call the other day with a major architectural firm, a good friend of mine, and he was bemoaning his fate. He was saying, Jim, I don't do anything different than any other architect who's building schools. Educational market was his forte. After 15 minutes, he was not only convinced just how different he was, he had 7 points that he could talk about that are different. You see, you may think everybody does what you do, but they don't. They don't do it the way you do it. They don't have your experiences. They don't have that touch that gives people the impression that what you're doing is truly, truly different. The minute you start differentiating, that's when you start getting business. You don't make money, right, with something that everybody has. You just don't make money that way. You make money with something no one else has, and they want it. That's how you make money. So if you look at, if you're going to build your website under construction, some of you came in, like I said, through Gmail and etc., and you don't have a website. So this is when people are looking for you, and they come to a situation like this where they see coming soon under construction, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to go somewhere else immediately. So don't even launch your website if you're doing one until you have it. And if you do have it under construction, make sure you give them something to read, not under construction. Right? Okay. Here's some attendee websites. I couldn't get all of you because, like I said, I don't want to spend the next 50 minutes showing all your website. But these are some of the websites that are in the audience. These are beautiful websites if you look at them, but if you start looking at them, they start to look alike. Big pictures. Not that they're bad. Remember. And one of the things I'm going to offer you, including the people with just Gmails in the audience, if you're in the audience today, I'm going to give you 15 minutes evaluation if you want it. Just contact me, contact Sue. We'll get on the phone, we'll get on a Zoom meeting, and we can go over your website if you're interested. If you're not interested, that's okay too. But these are just some of the websites. And you're going to look at them, and you're going to be reacting to them. Oh, I would never do that. Oh, look how beautiful this is. It's my website. Don't react like that. Just start looking at what this is and imagine you're a customer. Imagine you're a prospect. We have 4 manufacturers, but only one came in through the manufacturing hub that he gave me. This is a friend of mine, Andy. Other people, here's a design, Cabinets by Design, who has been in many of my webinars. Thank you for coming back. We love you. All right? Des Moines, Iowa, Central Iowa. Greeley and Hansen. This is an engineering architectural management company. And again, these are beautiful websites. You see everybody has navigation, career opportunities. This is great. Here's a custom remodeler. They got a blog. I should have went back and started asking you, notice the people who have blogs. Blogs are very important. So, that's some of the people that are in the audience. Not everybody. Like I said, we don't have time. Here's some quick checks for your website. How are we doing on time? Good. Spelling. Well, people don't spell, Jim. They don't really care anymore. Social media took care of that. Texting took care of that. I remember LOL when I first saw the LOL. I thought it was laugh out loud. So I went to my IT guy because my client had said LOL, and it says laugh out loud. I thought it was lots of love. I said, is my client hitting on me? The IT guy said, no, it means laugh out loud. That's how acronyms are born. And, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but as you learn that. Now I see LOL all the time. I'm not thinking love, I'm just thinking laughter. But spelling is very important. You make one mistake that someone who knows spelling, they judge you on that. No, they don't. Of course they do. What do others do on their websites? Well, wait a minute. You just showed me a bunch of websites. Are you saying I should explore all those? I'm saying if you go to Google and you put in a search term and one of those websites or 4 websites are up there and you're not, you should look at those websites. Because they're doing something on that website that brings them to page 1 in a Google search. That's what I'm telling you right now. And that's the truth. You have to look, and you don't have to look at, if you're an architect, you don't have to just look at architectural websites. You can go outside your lane. In fact, I encourage you to go outside your lane. And forget about being an architect for a moment and just look at the structure of websites. Besides, architects are structure guys. The dates on your content. Some of the people that I looked at, they have dates of 2019. They haven't posted anything since 2019. This is true of social media as well. So you have to ask yourself, if you haven't posted and somebody's looking at your website since 2019, how relevant are you? It's like going to a doctor who's just graduated, which has all the fresh ideas, or someone who's been around for a long time, but he hasn't published an article. The load times on your website, if you put a lot of pictures on the website, sometimes it takes a long time to load. One of the best databases we use for construction activity, it's one of the 2 main ones, just changed their website. And instead of loading instantly, it now takes 3 seconds for the picture to come up and you see it loading. Oh, Jim, what's 3 seconds? Time is the only non-renewable resource. Time. You'll never get this hour back, and I hope I'm giving you something to think about. Empty pages. If you click on a page and you get a oops, or you get oops, content yet to come, that's not good. Before the internet in the old days, and I'm an older guy, they used to say you can't judge a book by its cover. But yet, every time when I interviewed for twice a week for 6 months and couldn't find a job after I got fired as a teacher, people would judge on my appearance. First thing my dad told me is cut your hair. I had long hair in those days. I'm a 60s child. What can I tell you? I said, why? I want to be me. He said, that has nothing to do with this. You don't want to be you. You want to be the guy that they want to hire. So I had another guy ask me the other day. He's working the desk at the Y. He says, what do you, because he had different hair. He says, what do you think? I said, I think it's great. It's really not me that you should be asking. It's your employer. People judge your website by what they see, by what they hear. How do you know what they're looking for unless you've asked people? Have you asked people about your website? How does your content deliver what they are looking for? How does it do that? The most important part of how people hire you is your website. One of the most important parts, and I looked at your websites and only a few people have this, is the blog. What's a blog? Well, a blog is an essay. Remember essays when you're in school? Blog is content. Every post is a page. The more pages you have, the more likely that you are. Well, Jim, I don't know what to blog about. Blog about what you know, how you solved the client problem, what material you used to solve this problem. What about that situation where the client was just, he didn't know what he wanted, so you drove him to what he wanted. You have to use your imagination, and you all have imaginations, don't you? Blog. What does that blog mean? They're blogging websites. No. Don't go to a blogging website. Well, Jim, what about a podcast? Absolutely, but put the podcast on your website. Don't just put it in a podcast hub. put it on your website. Everything belongs on your website. Should I repeat that? Why? Why, Jim? Because people go to Google and instead of sending them to where that content is somewhere else, send them to your website. I had a major engineering firm write an article for a major technical publication, right? The technical publication published it and then came back to my client and said, we'd like you to pay to sponsor it on our website. And the client was infuriated. He said, what? He told me, this is a story he told me afterwards. He said, Jim, they wanted me to pay because it's my content there. I said, well, you gave it to them. You signed your rights over to them, and now they own it. What do you mean they own it? I wrote it. One of his engineers wrote it. I said, it doesn't matter. They own it. Did you read, the thing you signed? They own that content. And that's the last time he did business with them. And why would you? Because publishers, and there's fine publishers out there, but what they need is the same thing you need. They need content. Where are they going to get that content? They're going to get it from you. They got to get it from the writers, who are far few and in between, because they don't have your expertise. How do you write an article on design unless you're a designer? How do you do that? Well, you can interview designers, which is a lot of times what they do. They compile. I'm writing one right now on data centers. Because one of the questions that plagued me when I was studying data centers is, why do they close one? Why do they shut it down? Why do they decommission it? So I went out and I'm interviewing people, and I just got 2 responses back from people who decommissioned them, and it's got everything I need to know about decommissioning a data center. And it's going to help you do the same thing. Blogs are very important. So how does all this apply to your website? Repeat. The central point of contact for everything you do in marketing is your website. Your website changes. You have to be able to change quickly and easily, which is why WordPress is one of the many hubs that you could use, platforms rather, software. It's the platform of choice for us, but it doesn't have to be yours. Just make sure it's easy to use. You don't want to be paying agency people to change your website. You want people to do it. You want to do it. You want to have your staff to do it. You don't want to be paying for changing a word. Your website will actually create new relationships. How? Forms. Have a form on that website all the time. You want more information? Have a form. If you have a white paper and you want it downloaded, have a form. And be able to track that. We just posted on one of our businesses a major piece of research, as a matter of fact, on kitchen cabinets. And it's available through, if you fill out the form. Well, guess who filled out the form? 3 companies that we were very interested in knowing, that we wanted to know who fills it out. You fill it out, and all of a sudden you got 3 prospects. Or you've got a piece of information that you didn't have before. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen, you're not in the architecture business. You're not in the design business, the manufacturing business, the showroom business. You're in the information business. You're in a content war. And you fight that war with content, your content, your original content, which includes images with captions. So start with a plan. Everybody needs a plan, right? So this is where I say again, look at what other people are doing on their websites. Think about what you're doing. Your architecture, you don't just build a facility, you plan it. Do the same thing with your website. What are you going to have as the navigation? Why would you want this? Make it, as one of my clients preaches, circular. What does that mean? Well, it means you never leave the website. There's always something on the page to bring you back to another section of the website. This was very intuitive of my client. Why? Because he instinctively knew he doesn't want people leaving his website. You can have outside links if you like once in a while, but you really want interlinking, which Google loves, by the way. They love when people use you as a link and come back to your content. Then they think you're the expert. So look at what other people are doing and borrow their ideas. Don't be afraid to take them. It's not plagiarism. Don't take the exact idea, but if they're using a montage of photos rather than a single photo, maybe the montage is the way to go. I don't know. If they tie their picture into a video of how it was installed, the before and the after, maybe that's something you'd like to do. Be open to ideas. Because the worst type of client, and I know you know this, is the client who knows everything because you can't tell him anything. If you have a client who knows everything, how do you tell him anything? You can't do it. It's a conversation from hell. Excuse the pun. So, do you know what 2023 is going to bring? We're hearing a lot of stuff. I was talking to a client, major client yesterday. I said, what's going on? Here's a direct quote. Jim, we're waiting for direction. We're waiting for direction on what's going to happen. Think about that. How do you wait for direction? What does that mean? I'm waiting for direction. Well, maybe you're waiting to see if the Fed raises its rate again, and if money becomes freer, maybe it's right? You know what's going on in your market. You should know, not just from the goofy news, but from talking to people. Is it easy to buy a home these days? It depends on the market you're in, right? Where are people? Are they moving to cities? I saw something yesterday about what are we going to do about the commercial buildings in big cities? Because nobody's going back to work. I mean, they're going back to work in what they call a hybrid, right? But nobody's going back to work. What are we going to do with all that space? These are profound questions. And they relate, Jim, how does that relate to my business? Well, if you're a designer and an architect in a showroom and you supply those buildings with stuff that's now sitting there gathering dust, it certainly applies to your business. You might not be in business if they don't figure out what to do with those buildings. So maybe you help them figure it out. These platforms you see are really the website platforms. As I mentioned, WordPress, Dreamweaver, etc. These are just platforms you can explore. You can go to Google and say, what are the best platforms to build a website? Well, Jim, I don't have the time. And by the way, hint, don't do it yourself. Well, Jim, I'm pretty creative. That's great. If you want to do it yourself, do it. But my advice, don't do it yourself. You got other things to do. You're great architects and great designers. Define what you want. Rethink your website from, like you would a project from a client. What do clients go to see you for? What do they want from you? Do some research. Call up your 3 best project clients that you had and ask them, how's that working out? Did you look at my website? Can you take a few minutes to review? Would this attract you? Would it not attract you? I assure you, your customers will not be shy about telling you what they think. Because if they are, then they're probably not a good match for you, right? Or prospects. If you're prospecting, I just need your opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, I do a lot of research on the phone. I do a lot of research in person. But on the phone, here's the secret words. I was wondering if you can help me. I'm trying to understand your specification on blah, 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 blah. And I have yet not to have someone who answers that phone help me. I always get help. I even get return calls sometimes. Jim, do you bat 100%? No, of course not. People are busy. They're very busy. But if you ask someone for help, I assure you, professional people want to help. They want to share their knowledge. Designers are inherently sharers. And so are architects. Well, Jim, didn't you just say a while ago you can't make money on things everybody knows? Well, of course, but who knows everything? I only know one entity that knows everything, and he's not talking, right? Who knows everything? No one knows everything. No one can possibly know everything, including what you know. So sharing a little bit like now. You think I'm sharing with you some things we've learned over the past 30 plus years. Especially in the last 10 years when the digital thing just flipped everybody on their backs like turtles. I don't have the time to tell you everything. I only have an hour, and I only have 15 more minutes. So let's keep moving. A professional image means you have, you want to look professional. You don't want to look like you slapped it together. Templates are all over the place. All you got to do is start looking at websites. Go to some websites that you think, are the leading edge and start looking at them. Then look at some more and your eyes will cross by the time you get to the fifth one because they're using templates. There's nothing wrong with a template. It's how you use the template. You have to change it and make it your own. That's what you need to do. And be visual, like we said. Lots of visuals, but not just pictures. Talk, and cell phone snapshots, at the last minute are not the answer. What you want to do is be as professional as possible. The iPhone today, even 5 years ago, the iPhone of 5 years ago, takes wonderful images for website. You can't use it for print quality, perhaps, because it's not high res. But for website, for web design, sometimes, especially the latest iPhones, there's just nothing wrong with it. And take lots of pictures of your installations, of your project, of you working with people. I'm not going to mention this person's name, but he's a very famous person. When that person hits the road, there's always at least 3 cameras around that person. MacArthur was like this. General MacArthur, during World War II, when he would land on a beach or when he would walk, wherever he was taking pictures. He was a great PR guy, too, besides being a great general, because he knew the value of PR. You can't have enough pictures. Okay? Don't assume that people can visualize what you do. Don't assume that. Here's an example. They're selling this, add to my cart, $9.95. These samples are good, but that doesn't mean they could visualize it. You're better off showing that sample in action. Something more dramatic. Something that they can see and visualize and say, oh, wow, look at that. See, as opposed to this. See, this is just different. You don't want that. You want this. Okay. And applications. Don't just talk about what you're doing. Talk about applications, testimonials, what you've done, how you've used the material, and if it's not material, the different markets that you serve, educational, institutional, and be creative. Think about new ways to present your story. But don't be too creative, because if you're too creative, people won't understand. One of the things they call this is mystery meat. Teasers, right? Let's tease people. They don't have time to be teased. They don't have time to be sitting there trying to figure out, what does that commercial mean? What does that image mean? What are they talking about? They just click. They go on to the next one. And I hope you understand that. Here's an example. This is a company in Australia that we've tracked for several years. This is when we first found them. This is what their website looked like. You can see the copyright on the bottom. It's 2007. This is what their website looked like. It was horrible. It looked like that movie with, I forgot his name now, but he had that brain that worked on many, many levels. Then they redesigned it to look like this. That's better, but it's, it's got a nice big image. It's their company name and then the navigation. And then they designed it to this, which is much, ethos. Now they're talking. They got a wider picture. The navigation is on the side. The logo's in the upper left. And the latest one is this. Big picture, Geoform Architects, navigation on the top. They've arrived. This is what most websites look like. So they realized very quickly, probably maybe 10, it took them 10 years from 07 to realize that creativity can be too creative. You can be too creative. Social. This is the comment on social media. You do want to use social media. Why do you want to use social media? Well, because people get social media. Facebook, YouTube, they own Facebook, or they own YouTube rather, Instagram, Twitter, etc. LinkedIn is the preferred professionals platform. You should be using LinkedIn. But for designers, of course, you use Instagram. You share your pictures on Instagram. You talk to people. How much business do you realize? Well, Jim, I get a lot of business from Instagram. Great. Congratulations. I'm applauding. How do you measure that, and how do you do that, and how do you know someone's not on there too, listening to you and just taking your ideas and going somewhere else? I'm just saying, you know what showrooming is? So platforms are important. You have to be there. It's like broadcasting. We have a client now using LinkedIn as, quote, his advertising platform. He's not going to any of the media outlets. He's going to use LinkedIn to advertise his company. Why? Because LinkedIn is comprised of professionals he wants to reach. What type of professionals? Mechanical engineers, architects. These people use and have pages besides their own, personal page on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is actually his gift to all of us, right? His meaning capital H. For finding people, you can find anyone, you can connect with anyone on LinkedIn. That doesn't mean they'll connect back to you unless you have a compelling message, but you can. Support your website. Post, do direct mail, do phone, do print advertising. You have to, just because you build it, they will not just come. They just won't. You have to constantly promote it. Please, promote. Time to recap. We've got a few minutes. Define your audience. Who are you really aiming at? You don't want to talk to the world. One client says, who are you interested in? Anybody that'll look at me. That's not true. Define your audience. Profile your customers. Look at who buys from you. What are their zip codes? Do they have others? Who is this person buying from you? And then find people of the same ilk. Find and define your value. What makes you different? Why are you different? And then turn that value into your differentiation. And we can talk about that at another time. And using differentiating on your website through your design work, the images you use, how you talk about yourself, your branding, visualizing a great website, creativity, etc., and then use integrated marketing drivers, social media, direct mail. Do research on your website. Pose a question to your audience. Put a form on your website. Please go here. Use, the monkey, right? Social monkey? No. What is that one that does research? The monkey. We call him the monkey. Get the monkey off my back. And don't forget SEO. Very, very important, right? As an example, remember the little trick I told you, site, website? Look at the top right. Site, Amazon.com has 331 million pages. Is it any wonder they're always on page 1 when you do a Google search? This is an amazing company, by the way. Amazing company. Google has 584 million pages because they're Google. Questions? Bernie, do we have any questions? Let's see here. Bernie's been monitoring me in the background, and I don't see... I'm looking at everybody who's been here. By the way, thank you for your... Bernie, do we have any?
No, I do not see any.
Why not? Was I that clear, Bernie?
Yes.
Stop it. All right. I guess there's no questions. So let's wrap it up. Shall we wrap it up? Big thank you. I want to thank you for your time. This is a time you will never get back. I really appreciate it. I hope I gave you some ideas to think about. If you have any questions, contact me, Jim at Interline Group, Jim at interlinegroup.com. 847-358-4848 is the office phone. If you go to interlinegroup.com/evaluate, you can actually look at our guides. Get a copy of our, fill out the form, and you'll get our guides. And then for the people in the audience today, again, the exclusive offer, if you're interested in an analysis of your website from our point of view, be happy to do it. 15-minute, no charge consultation. Wait, I see a question mark from Gail. Oh, Gail, it's not a question, it's a thank you. Gail, you're very welcome. Oh, I'm getting thank yous. They're putting thank yous, Bernie, in the question box. This is terrific. Thank you for attending, Gail. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Is there anything else? Any other questions? No? Okie dokie. Thank you very much. And there's these I have a lot of content on my website, as you can guess. Some of these CEUs I've done in the past are recorded. If you need the credit, you can go to our website and check on our CEU webinars. I'll be planning more in the future. I'm going to take the presentation that I did, that I'm going to do in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to turn that into a course on the trends. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you so much.